guys. Welcome to Fantasy Effect episode 86 with some new tunes, some mid-season report. We now have a free Discord. If you guys want to get in on that, DM us on Twitter. Also a Patreon as well. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I got McSpanky and Holler with me tonight. As always, how's it going, guys?
What's up, guys? That was a surprise that I was telling you about.
I
You
was.
pieced that together. But what did you think of the tunes?
Dude, I was very excited.
I'm hyped up. Yeah.
I let out a brah, brah, and then I was like, I don't even care. And then I was like, oh yes, it's muted, so nobody knows. Everybody knows now, but that's neither here nor there.
I felt like Ray Lewis, do his little right? Do his little intro. But
I found some royalty-free music, and the ones that my 3-year-old twin started dancing to the hardest is the one I picked, and so that was the winner. But
there we go.
Anyways, football, man. Another week of football, another round of just crazy injuries. I swear, Monday night people were just dropping like flies. I mean, we had Mike Evans go down. We had Chris Godwin got his ankle just put the wrong way, which was really sad. The San Francisco wide receivers basically died on the field. It's just not good times. Everyone's just dropping like flies.
Yes, they are. Should we hop right into the news because we got a lot of it?
Let's do it.
Ready?
It's been sad.
Okay. Yeah, very much so. You ready to get even sadder?
Yeah.
Always.
Brandon Ayuk, ACL tear. Debo has pneumonia. He is out of the hospital for what it's worth. He may play Sunday. Chris Godwin has a dislocated ankle, out for the year. Mike Evans hurt his hamstring, at least out till after the bye. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. DK Metcalf in his knee. He is week to week. Jaden Daniels with a rib injury. He's week to week. He hasn't practiced yet. Deshaun Watson ruptured an Achilles. Nobody cares. Juju Smith-Schuster has a hamstring. He's already out week 8. Aiden O'Connell broke his thumb, out 4 to 6 weeks. And D-Hop has been traded to the Chiefs. JMO got suspended for 2 games. And Cooper Kupp is playing on Thursday to showcase for the trade suitors. Man,
a lot.
Where do we start?
Let's go to Ayuk first. So you can go to San Francisco. The ACL tear, that's horrible. What the funny thing about this is that I was like looking at Brandon Ayuk and I was like, all right, I'm gonna look at all my bad fantasy teams here and try to see if I can go buy some Brandon Ayuk for next year, just because he's injured. He's not going to count towards my point total. So I just read the chat from Kevin. Daniel Jones didn't get hurt, but unfortunately still playing. Yes, that's almost worse than injury.
True.
But no, Ayuk, the funny thing about this is that, like, on a lot of teams that you were trying to buy him from, like if a contender just lost him, a lot of times Ayuk teams suck because he's been horrible. He got paid this year and then just decided, nah, I don't really feel like playing very much. And so he's been awful. I don't know. I don't know. He's still young, so this is a weird one. But I feel like his trade value really tanked. Where do you guys have him down? I moved him down to kind of like a late 1, early 2, somewhere in that range. But it seems like some of the trades we were seeing are lower than that even. So
some of them are bonkers.
Thinking.
I was just looking at Dynasty Daddy, and this is one that I pulled up that just is bonkers to me. So we haven't gotten to Chris Godwin yet, but this one is Brandon Ayuk and Chris Godwin for a 2025 second and third, and a 2026 second and third.
Jeez.
Ooh, 2 2s and 2 3s. Is that how
2 2s and 2 3s? Yeah. So I mean, if those are early, obviously we don't know anything, any details, but yeah, that's kind of where he's at. And it's all over the place because right next to it is T. Higgins for Brandon Ayuk in a third, right? And so that's kind of what you would think he's trading for before the injury, and that third would probably be on the T. Higgins side. But it is all over the place. And I think it's mainly because he's going to miss probably half, maybe not half the season next year, but at least, the first couple of games, maybe. It could be. I know it's usually 8 months,
eight
right?
Months, yeah.
So it just depends on how long. And I think mainly it's just because he's been playing bad, and then he was injured, and then he got injured, right? And so, but I know in our Discord, someone said that they would be easily shipping off Chris Godwin and holding Ayuk. And I asked why, and it was just because of Ayuk has a better situation. He's contract is signed. He's locked up, and he's younger. I get it, but man, if you just think of the drastic, the stats were in two different directions, right? Godwin was playing amazing. Ayuk was playing like crap. So, and I, off the top of my head, I want to look it up the ages, but I don't think they're that.
Godwin's 28.
Yeah, Godwin's 28. I think Ayuk's 26.
26. Okay,
yeah,
so only 2 years
Ayuk came
difference.
out older. Yeah.
So, and maybe Godwin goes to a new team. Maybe he goes back to Tampa Bay. But to me, I think it's closer than what people think between those two.
For what it's worth, Godwin does have it's his 2025 is a void year in his contract, so I think the way they do that is he's going to be a free agent, right?
Yeah.
So he could go anywhere. The thing about Godwin though too is that like with the ankle injury, I'm less worried about that.
Exactly.
For reason. The Ayuk, so it was an ACL and an MCL tear, which sometimes those do take a little bit longer to come back from. And when you do come back, you're not always kind of the same guy. We've seen running backs; it usually takes them an extra, 3 months of like in game, 3 to 6 months in game before they kind of get back up to speed. Ayuk's already kind of gone through. And I don't want to question the guy's work ethic, but we've seen some issues where he's gotten in the doghouse from Kyle Shanahan before. Maybe he wasn't like practicing seriously. There's a little bit of concern there too. Whereas Chris Godwin, that dude works like a pro.
Yeah.
So I'm less concerned about that. But the thing with Godwin, we can get into it. Like I've seen a couple trades for him just straight up. Like he got traded for Pop Douglas one, just straight up, and then another one. Was Chris Godwin for Josh Downs, which feels like Godwin's like free, man. And so he's the one I would love to try to acquire. And actually, incidentally, I traded him away on a bad team a couple weeks ago, and I got a 2025 first for him. And now I'm figuring out if I can buy him back for cheaper and just double dip on Chris Godwin. But
now,
I mean, I just pulled some trades for him, and there's one Michael Wilson and Kareem Hunt. I know Kareem Hunt's playing well, but it's just gross, right? I mean, so if you can get yourself some Godwin, go out and do it, because I think he's going to be back sooner than later, right? Obviously, it's a different turnaround than the ACL. Probably not back this season. But I don't worry too much about his age, and he's a worker, like you said, Spanky, and maybe he goes to a new team. But I think Wes just said it in the chat that he probably takes a hometown discount. And if I don't remember how many years Baker signed for, but if he's back next year, I think he is. Then he'll be fine, right? So to me, I think Godwin's one of those guys that you can just feel good about him being your wide receiver 2 or 3, and kind of set it and forget it.
Yeah, Baker's there 2 more years. He's good until 2027.
Yeah, they were playing well. So like, if they can bring the boys back, and I think he will be fine. Like, and Ayuk just has not looked good all year since signing. I don't know if it's because he didn't practice in the off season and was holding out. I don't know what it is, but we're week 8 now. Obviously, he's injured, but you'd want to see it. I feel like he's only had one good game.
So
I think I heard on Ayuk also from a pretty reliable source that it's only I'm sorry, not Ayuk, on Godwin. It's a 2-month recovery from that dislocated ankle, so he should be up and running, and we should know quite early on if he's drastically slowed down. I would think with that short of a recovery, he could be pretty solid for you next year.
Yes. So he should, maybe we'll get back for like week 17. That would be like best case scenario, but maybe he's back if they make the playoffs. I don't, with them losing him and Evans for a few weeks, I think it's going to be tough for them to get into the playoffs, because it's been circling, but Jalen McMillan has not looked good. So maybe their best option is Cade Otton, who has looked good, but they need some wide receivers.
Sterling Shepard.
Sterling Shepard and Trey Palmer, so I don't know. I think it's going to be tough.
Shepard, but man, he's not can't be your one. That's for sure.
Well, I got bad news for you.
He's the one.
He is going to be him and Trey Palmer and Trey Palmer.
And before we move on, but I did move Ayuk on a contending team. I also have Puka and CMC on IR, and my team is currently in, I think it's second place behind you, actually, Spanky. And so I'm actually holding out pretty good. And so I traded Ayuk away for it was Darnell Mooney and Tony Pollard. Right. So I don't necessarily have to start either of them. I was just looking at it. I have DK Metcalf and Chris Godwin as well. So that one hurt a lot. But I probably am going to have to start Mooney and Pollard now with all three of those wide receivers gone. But I felt like that was a solid return versus what we're hearing out there. So I didn't love it, but what I saw with other trades, I felt like it was a solid return.
I like that. I'm kind of surprised you got an added onto Pollard just with some of the trades we're seeing. I would almost assume that people would want to trade just straight up.
Straight up, yeah.
Nobody ever wants Pollard though. Like,
but
he's just kind of in just an odd space. You know what I mean? Like, I could never. I had him on a tanker all off season long, and I struggled to get a second for him up until his season rolled around, and I think he put together 2 solid weeks, and somebody's willing to give me, I can't remember what I got.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think the last couple of weeks he's played really well, and I think Tennessee, I know they're shipping people off, but they're using him the right way, right? I mean, I know Tajay Spears has been injured. I think he was out last game, but they're using him properly. They're kind of rotating him in with other guys, so I think they're going to continue to use him properly, and I think he's going to be a usable guy.
For sure. And Pollard's one of those guys, though, too. If you get him on your roster, a lot of times you're going to be stuck with him. It just kind of is what it is. But he's good. I mean, I was just looking up his fantasy finishes this year. 12, 19, 49. That wasn't great. 14, then he missed the game. 14, 32. So, he's not, kills you. He's not exactly won you any weeks either, but he's been a solid, especially if he's, your RB3 in a flex spot. He's a very usable player. The biggest thing is that Tennessee's bites, and so that's always dicey. But.
Definitely. Is Debo worth talking about? I don't really think you have to move off of Debo at this point. It doesn't sound like it's going to be an extended period time or extended. I can't even put the words in my mouth right now. But also, you should have a little bit of concern, I think, probably through the next couple weeks over his usage and how much we do see him on the field. Pneumonia can be nasty stuff, and we don't know how severe his case actually was of pneumonia.
I mean, he got hospitalized, so it's probably fairly severe.
Severe.
They have a bye in week 9. I almost wonder if he misses this week and they kind of give him an extra week, or maybe use him sparingly in week 8 and then the bye week, and then it's more like week 10 before we see him finally getting back into a bigger workload. That said, I wouldn't be super worried about shipping him off. Not like Ayuk and Godwin, I think are more on the being able to be traded away. Debo is just man, that he really screwed some people over this last week when basically he was active, he suited up, and then he played 3 snaps, then he was gone. There are people that the one of the injury ones we haven't talked about too is Jaden Daniels. He was on such a tear and a rib injury. Sounds like he's week to week. It feels like he's trending in the wrong direction this week. We talked all about how frail he was and kind of a slimmer frame. Do you think this takes away from him being able to run the ball at all and try to make him throw the ball more? Because I think that might limit some of his fantasy output too.
So I believe it would totally limit some of his fantasy output. But if you look at what he did last year, the guy I think his first thing, his first read is to run the ball. Right. And so I think that's not going to change. Maybe not his first read, but that's just kind of what he wants to do. So I don't think that's going to change. Maybe he will learn, hopefully, how to not take as many hits or as big of the hits. I don't know if that's just more me being hopeful. But no, I think this is just what he does, right? He runs the ball, and so I think he's going to continue to do that. We don't see. I know Lamar does a really really good job of staying healthy and not taking hits. So maybe he can learn to do that, and so I think Washington will probably tell him, hey, let's maybe try to not run as much so we don't take those hits. But to me, I think with him being a competitor and the way he is, if you just watched his games last year, all he does is run the ball.
Yeah.
And so nothing changed last year when he got a bunch of hits. And so, I think I don't think anything will change in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's just going to go out there and be the same Jaden Daniels that we know. And I think they're more so going to have to protect him from himself as opposed to him trying to protect himself.
And, we've seen it. Quarterbacks learn. So I think it, takes time. Obviously Tua hasn't learned, but I think he's a little bit in a different boat. But yeah, I think it would totally limit his fantasy output if he were to run less. I think, with his running upside is what really has put him up into that top 4 QB, possible top 4 QBs.
Definitely. Do we need to majorly discuss any of these other guys? They kind of stink. You know what I mean? Like between Watson, Juju, Aiden O'Connell.
Just DK. I don't think he's going to play this week. So if anybody was thinking about, I have a ton of DK. So I've been looking, to make sure I had other options, and I'm just kind of leaning towards he's not going to play. And I think with like a knee injury like that, if you were to go out and try to just toughen it out, I think he could re-injure his knee and make it worse. Right. So that's kind of, I think what happened with Puka is I think it was a little bit obviously a different injury, but he went and played that first week and re-injured. And now he's been out all the way, hasn't played again since week 1. So I think if DK can miss a game, I think the Seahawks will be just fine. So I'm thinking he's out, and I think it'd be tough, as I think if you have DK, I don't think you want to move off of him. So I think it's going to be tough to buy him. He's been great. There's been some down games, but overall he's been really really good, and so you're going to have to pay a nice price for him. If you have him on a contender, I don't know if now is the time to move off of him because people are going to want an injury discount. But I would wait. Once he goes back, he'll have another good game, and then you can get back to his normal price.
I mean, the volume in Seattle is just crazy right now, and he's the first read on that offense. They're throwing the ball more than anyone else in the league. Like, I wouldn't want to sell him at a discount by any means.
Exactly.
And DK Metcalf, I would love to buy more of him, especially on teams that are maybe more middling. But in that scenario too, like if you're fighting for a playoff spot, you probably don't have the time to wait a couple weeks for him to come back if he is going to miss a couple games, especially with all the other injuries out there right now. But that's the thing, like with some of these contenders, they might not be able to either. They might have to keep getting points in their lineup, and so they might be forced to we're in a position where it's like, hey, I'm kind of desperate here. Maybe I will take 85 cents on the dollar instead of full price for DK. So
sure.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to, just because of how well he plays, I wouldn't want to take a discount. I'd rather keep him. Like say, like if he's not gonna, I mean, he will add to your points obviously because he's gonna have those good games. But I'll take it. I'd rather be the get the third pick versus the first pick, and then next year I have DK. And so I don't want to take a discount.
Definitely. Should we pop down to some dynasty updates?
Let's do it.
We got some mid-season grades here. First up, we got Kyler Murray with a big old B- here. Quarterback 6 on the year. Doesn't feel like that.
So that's the thing. So with these grades, just full disclosure, I just arbitrarily gave people grades. So you can agree or disagree how you want. But QB 6 on the year, but it's so like oh hum, right? He's only thrown for multiple touchdowns once in the 7 games. He's thrown for exactly 6 times, and then he had a 3 touchdown game. I think it was like week 2 where Marvin Harrison scored both of those touchdowns in the first quarter. 4 weeks throwing under 200 yards. He's running the ball pretty well. Not like awesome, but it's like, I don't know. What do you guys think about Kyler? Like, I feel like it's going kind of in the wrong direction. Like, he's kind of still like putting numbers up, but it feels like it's fleeting.
So there's a question on the notes that should we be concerned, and I said yeah, because if you look at his passing numbers, they've been the last couple of games abysmal, right? Under 200 yards. If you take his rushing out, I don't even know if he would be. I think he's probably not even top 20. And there's times that Marvin Harrison Jr. is wide open and he's not getting him the ball. So I know Marvin Harrison Jr. is the number one option on that team, and everyone's the defense is gonna take him away. But if you have that good of wide receiver on your team as a quarterback, to me, you should be trying to get him the ball, right? Starting the beginning of the game. To me, he's good. Marvin Harrison Jr. is good enough to beat the defense. And just we haven't seen it. And so to me, I think that falls on Kyler. I felt like the first couple of games were like, oh, cool. I think Kyler's going to be back. I know he's QB6 on the year, but I just think that's going to end. It's not going to end well. I think he's going to end up in that, 12 to 16 range. And unfortunately, I had moved him up actually. I had moved him up all the way to QB8. And I was just looking at my rankings, and I think I was gonna maybe move him back down. I hadn't moved him up above Jordan Love. I gotta move that. I think I'm gonna move him into the next tier from tier 4 to tier 5. Probably not move him, because the quarterbacks I have below him. Well, I have Caleb Williams and Justin Herbert. I might move Caleb Williams back up above him. I think his passing needs to get better.
Yeah, he's just not like seeing the field well, I don't think. And I think his instinct right now too is like, if whatever read he has first, and a lot of times it's Trey McBride, if he's not open, he's just running. He's tucking it. And it's just not. He's missing guys. Marvin Harrison Jr. has been there was a lot of talk about Marvin Harrison about is he one of the worst first round rookies?
Saw that
that we've had recently, and it's like, well, how much of this is a Marvin Harrison problem and how much of it is a Kyler problem? And I lean more on that. This is a Kyler Murray problem. Yep. And how long of a leash does Kyler Murray have before the Cardinals start looking for it? Because he survives like how many different coaching changes and different GMs in Arizona now. Like, I feel like if he doesn't, I don't know, if he doesn't start playing better, I think it could be time that they start looking for a replacement and ship him out the door. What do you guys think about that?
I don't think that's crazy at all. I think they need a quarterback. They have like receiving options. Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride. Right, those are two really, really good options. He should be putting up 250 easy per week. And so I think they need to. If it continues, they're going to look elsewhere. I think the dog agrees.
Yeah,
the dog is like, yeah, Kyler sucks. Just looking at his contract, though, so he's counting for $43 million against the cap, and then in 2025, and then 2026, there's a potential out year where if they cut him pre-June 1st, it's only like an $18 million hit on the cap, and then it goes down to $7 million. So they could also try to work out a trade where someone else kind of takes that money, but I don't know, man. Like, I feel like something's got to give there, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the offensive coordinator. I don't know if it's Kyler. I don't know if it's just like the system. He's not trusting the offensive line, what the deal is. But, man, Kyler's been really disappointing, despite being QB6 on the season. So,
he's one to watch for me. I know he's been fine in fantasy terms, but I think if anything, he's really hurting Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride.
Would you do Kyler or Baker Mayfield straight up?
Kyler.
I'm going to do Kyler, yeah. He's got that rushing upside.
Yeah.
Go there. Okay, Kyler or Dak Prescott?
So I'm going to go Kyler here because I think I would go Baker over Dak.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Kyler. I just think the rushing upside is larger with Kyler than it is with Dak.
Yeah.
And Dallas seems to be in shambles.
Totally.
One more. Kyler or Brock Purdy?
Kyler. I know we're about to talk about him, but I'm worried about Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
He looked bad last week.
Yeah, I mean, so
especially in the red
caveat
zone.
that with it's the Kansas City Chiefs defense. They've been a defensive team for, quite a few years. And, if you listen to any like NFL focused podcasts and not fantasy, people just like drool over the things that Spagnuolo does on the defensive side of the ball. That being said, the one interception was just god awful. He loses Ayuk almost immediately, Debo almost immediately. So the game plan is probably then falling on Purdy's shoulders and probably a little bit of forcing it in there. Willing to give him kind of a break for that game, but I have concerns moving forward when you're minus Ayuk, a non-healthy Debo. I mean, their healthiest wide receiver got shot in the chest in the offseason.
Yep.
He's the healthiest guy on the field right now. Like, that's insane.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I think Jauan Jennings is coming back, but he's dealing with that hip. And I just think Purdy has had so many weapons that I think that's helped him. So I think in the next couple of weeks we're going to really see it, right? I know he was playing against the Chiefs, and that defense is really, really good, but I think 2 out of those 3 interceptions in the red zone were pretty rough. I feel like he just was forcing the ball there. So for me, I know he was. We felt like he was, doing really well, moving him up the rankings and the QB rankings. But for me, I'm pumping the brakes a little bit.
Fair enough. I think one of the interesting things is that like we talked about how bad he played, and he did throw in the ball, but he also ran for 2 touchdowns last week. So he ended up being the QB8 on the week. So it's like he had a horrible performance without his 2 wide receivers, but he still produced. I guess it really comes down to how much do you trust? Like, is Kittle going to be ready to go? If Debo's out there, is he the same Debo that we've come to expect? Is Ricky Pearsall, is he ready to go? Like, how much has he absorbed of the offense? Jauan Jennings, is he in for another monster game as the wide receiver 1 in San Francisco? I think the last time we saw him do that, he went nuclear in a random game. So.
He did play against the Rams, who could have me out there as the safety or cornerback. So that would be rough. That would be really, really scary.
Pretty tough.
So I think Jauan Jennings is fine, right? I mean, I think he can be okay, but we're gonna really see it, right? I think if Purdy can put up some numbers, if he can, be all right over the next couple of weeks, and waiting for Debo to be back and healthy, and I think if Pearsall can come around and be pretty good, then I think we'll be just fine with Purdy. But like I said, I'm pumping the brakes a little bit. I'm probably not going to move him in my rankings just yet, just because he has that rushing upside. He put up good points last week, and he was playing the Chiefs. But to me, if you're looking at those interceptions, I think 2 of them were pretty bad.
No, for sure. Well, the good news is he's going to play Sunday Night Football. He's got an island game against the Cowboys. The Cowboys haven't exactly been juggernauts on defense this year, so we'll see how he does. Hopefully he looks good. For the record, I gave him a B- so far in the year.
Yeah, which I think
I think we had higher expectations for him coming in. He's done well, but I think we expected him to be playing a little bit better. He's still producing fantasy wise, but I think he hasn't played as well as he has the last couple of years.
Yeah, I still have him. I have him too low. I just noticed that. But yeah, I mean, I still have him over guys like Anthony Richardson.
That's fine.
I even have him over Dak Prescott right now, right? I'd rather have Brock Purdy than Dak Prescott. So I have him kind of lumped in with Caleb and Justin Herbert right now. So kind of, like I said, pumping the brakes. I'd rather have Caleb and Justin Herbert. And so I'm not really moving off of him for guys like Richardson or Trevor Lawrence, obviously, and Tua.
Yeah. It does bring up just an interesting conversation, like NFL wise, like with what Brock Purdy looks like minus all those weapons. Does San Francisco elect to pay him or let him walk in free agency? Because if he walks out the door of San Francisco, I'd have a lot of concerns for Brock Purdy and his future.
Oh yeah, his value is entirely tied to being in Kyle Shanahan's offense. Anywhere else, I don't think he wasn't overly great at Iowa State. I don't know if you guys ever watched him play too much college ball. He had these games where he looked like he could, he was a superstar throwing 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and then the next game he threw about 4 interceptions, and you're just like, dude, what is this guy doing?
Yep.
So that said, though, he's still under contract next year, 2025. But then the year after that is when he's a free agent. I would imagine. I'm curious if he's going to try to play hey, I need you guys to pay me in the offseason. Going to that last season, he's getting paid I think I saw something crazy. He's the 45th highest paid quarterback or something.
Yeah, it was on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah,
I think it was. It was pretty low down there. I can't remember exactly the number, but I think honestly, if I remember correctly, because I was so surprised, 80 something. Right.
Yeah, it was so far down the list. It was kind of surprising. So I'm curious if he tries to go into the offseason as hey, I need you guys to pay me before I play.
Yeah.
He also doesn't really have much leverage. So
and Wes has a good point. Put him in with a creative coach, put him at Kansas City or the Rams, and the Rams is with Stafford, it's a possibility, but I doubt it happens. But I think maybe give him in the Shanahan tree or the McVay tree, and I think he'll be all right.
I mean, the good news for him is that about half the league is running
a
Shanahan or a McVay offense at this point. So
definitely
got some options.
Yeah, now we got up next, Mr. Baker Mayfield. I have a lot of concerns for Baker. Being without Chris Godwin and without Mike Evans for an extended period of time, I don't think we see those quarterback 6 performances. I wish I would have grabbed the tweet when I saw it, but the numbers with and without Mike Evans or Chris Godwin on the field are pretty drastically bad. We saw Baker in Cleveland with a bad offense, bad wide receivers, everything along those lines. It's going to be really tough sledding for Baker. I look at his schedule here too, just to see.
The one pushback I would just say on that is in Cleveland, he had Freddie Kitchens as his offensive coordinator and a slew of other just garbage out there. I could have been out there with a Madden playbook and call him better plays than what was being drawn up.
Sure.
So I think there's a infrastructure for a good offensive system there. I think the offensive line's still fine. They have about 3 running backs there that are fairly productive. I think Baker it would be better. I don't think it's gonna. I think he takes a dip. So I think you're right. I don't think he's gonna be those QB6 performances, but I think he could still be QB 12 to 15 and still be just good. What are you thinking, Holler?
Yep, I'm feeling the same way. I think he's going to take a dip here with who he's going to be throwing the ball to. Cade Otton has looked really, 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 really good, and so I think that is going to continue. I think that he'll be able to dump the ball off. They have, like you said, 3 really good running backs. Sean Tucker's come out of nowhere and played really well. So I just think, unfortunately, with Evans going to be out all the way to week 12, I think maybe they go out and make a trade for a wide receiver. On X, I've seen some rumors about maybe Cooper Kupp going there because of Liam Cohen. I doubt that happens.
Nice.
That would be, I think, dreaming, right? I think that's what people on X just dreaming and thinking of places that Cooper Kupp could be tied to because of Liam Cohen was there. That was his wide receiver and his offensive coordinator a few years ago. So I think Baker will go will dip a little bit, and then when Mike Evans is back, I think he'll be fine for the rest of the season.
Mm-hmm. Todd Bowles did come out and say that they were confident in the wide receiver room that they have. So I don't know that. Yeah.
What is he going to say? We're screwed, guys.
Yeah.
We got Sterling Shepard running out with the ones.
Hey,
have you seen another coach that looks the same no matter what happens? Todd Bowles has no change in his face, nothing. That guy has no fire.
Him and Tomlin, dude. They just have the same, stoic, whatever happens, and it's just the same.
Tomlin, I see a little bit of fire, even when you they have for some reason I feel like they're always on Sunday Night Football or on Monday Night Football. I just feel
it's a popular brand.
They are this week.
Yeah. And so whenever he has a interview, I just feel like he's kind of fired up a little bit. But Todd Bowles, oh my gosh, it looks like his dog died every time they pan to him. It's just what is going on? It's good, but I don't know exactly how I could play for that guy. It's just I can only imagine him firing up a group, right?
He
I could
spent a
listen
lot
to
of
him
time
talk all
for
day.
the Jets, so I'm sure that took a lot of his soul.
Yeah.
True. That'll do it.
So, but yeah, no,
That'll
I
do
love
it.
this. I love this grade that you have for Baker here. He's with an A. He's been outstanding this year. I
He's
feel
been
like.
great.
I think a lot of people didn't expect too much for him. I know we talked about on the show, like Liam Cohen. Is he going to be any good? And he's been great. Going from I'm slipping his name now. From Carolina,
Quarterback was Dave Canales.
Yeah, Dave Canales to now Liam Cohen. It's just like it's been kind of seamless. So they've looked really good, and I think that he runs a good offense for Baker Mayfield. So I think that he'll be all right. He's not going to be the same QB5, QB6 guy in the next couple of weeks until Mike Evans gets back. And even I think then he might be more in the 12 to 15 range when Mike Evans is back, because Chris Godwin was playing so well. But yeah, I mean, this is much better than what anybody thought of Baker being a top 5 quarterback going into week 8.
Yeah, I mean, his fantasy finishes have been just through the roof, man. He's 2-5. He had a 27 in there, but 3-7, 2-2. Now, Ron, I wanted to go back to what you said at the beginning about him you're being concerned. If you have Baker, are you trying to move off of him, or are you just kind of gripping down the holding on, trying to go down with the
I think you're
here?
just going to have to grip down, and I'm glad you brought this up because it kind of leads into what I was going to say. And like, I think more of my concern is on the dynasty side for Baker. And if he goes out here and throws a few stinkers up, we're right back to, oh my goodness, Baker's just in the trash can again. And all that goodwill that he's built up over the past 2 years, I mean, can be gone at the drop of a hat. You've seen how quickly we can turn on people we're excited about. And people weren't, you weren't generally excited about having Baker on your roster. You're like, oh, okay, cool. I have a starting quarterback, here. And, then he comes out and he does have, the awesome season that he's put together, but a few stinkers, man, he's right back in the dumps.
Yep.
That's fair.
So I just pulled up, he's not a very, there's only been 68 trades recently on Dynasty Daddy. And there's only been one from today and yesterday, or 2 in the past couple of days. So this is, after only a few after the injuries. So one of them was 3 ones and Trevor Lawrence for Jake Ferguson and Baker Mayfield. That seems like a lot. I'm taking the picks and Trevor Lawrence. Another one was Baker and a 2 for Jalen Waddle and Travis Kelce. And then the other one was a 2025 1 and Bryce Young for Baker Mayfield. So, I think he's still kind of trading at like around 1. That seems about what he's trading at. I think there was an outlier there with those 3 firsts with Jake Ferguson tied to Baker Mayfield. So, if I have him, I'm holding him. I'm not going to move him, because if you have him, you're probably doing well, right? And so there's no reason to move off of him, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, definitely agree. It's definitely a hold. Let's pop into these wide receivers here. Marvin Harrison with a C+. It's been a rough go for Marv.
We talked about it a little bit, and I think it's mainly been, I think it's a Kyler problem. He has really good numbers. I'll let Spanky go through those numbers, but man, I just think not necessarily like yards numbers per se, but I think he's been fine. I think it was Kevin from the W Royale the other day said that he's still his wide receiver 1 in this rookie class, and I have no problem with that. I know Malik Neighbors has been so much better in terms of yards and everything like that. So I think for me, it's a coin flip. I think
you're getting 30% of the targets.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to lean towards, me, I'm going to lean a little bit towards Neighbors, but I have no problem with anybody saying Marvin Harrison is still the rookie wide receiver number 1. I think he's going to be just fine. I don't think anybody needs to panic. I don't think you'll want to move off of him right now because you're going to have to, to me, you're going to lose.
Yeah, definitely. You're definitely losing value if you were to move Marvin Harrison right now.
Yeah, can't move him. Go ahead.
So I got Marv, I think it was last week, on a team that I'm rebuilding. I got Marv and I think it was a second, if I remember correctly, for AJ Brown and Dallas Goddard. So Marvin Harrison Jr. and a 25 second. It's probably a playoff second for AJ Brown and Dallas Goddard. And I kind of felt like it was maybe a little bit of a loss, but I think it's kind of equal, right? Because I think I'll take the longevity of I know AJ Brown's locked up with a good contract and all that, but like I'm not. We've talked about it before. All we do is crap on the Eagles. AJ Brown's done well the last couple games, but Dallas Goddard's injured, and Dallas and Goddard's only played well when AJ Brown was out. So I felt pretty solid with that, especially with I'm rebuilding, so I'm okay with Marvin Harrison having some growing pains this year.
Gotcha.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
go ahead. Thank you.
I was just gonna say, I think for Marvin Harrison, I think that the biggest problem here is that's not that his numbers themselves, because like for rookie wide receivers, like they really just need to get about like 10 fantasy points per game for them to kind of maintain their value. We've kind of seen that as like the magic number. I think the biggest disappointment is that like you spent the 102 on him in rookie drafts this April, right? Or even in redraft, like he was going kind of at that 1-2 turn. So and then you contrast that with Malik Neighbors, who was kind of going like the 104, 105, and then he was going like later in the probably like second, third round in redraft, and he's just setting the world on fire. And Marvin Harrison Jr., you're just hanging your hat on that week 2 game where he scored 2 touchdowns in the first quarter, and then that's about all he's done all year. He's kind of just been ho-hum, very replaceable. And so I think that's where some of the disappointment's coming from. It's not necessarily that he's been bad. It's just you can't help but just contrast that with Malik Neighbors or Jaden Daniels, who were kind of going around him in rookie drafts and being like, man, I'm still not scoring points. But his numbers itself, like he's a quarter of the time, so 25%, he's the first read on the offense. He's got 38% of the team's air yards. Now, the problem with that is that it's not translating into actually getting receptions. So for whatever reason, when he is open, he's just not getting the ball. I hope at some point they get this fixed. I would assume they will at some point. It's just a matter of like how long will it go. Go ahead.
I think this all goes back to Kyler. I don't think stylistically what Marvin Harrison is as a wide receiver fits Kyler's game. Because when Kyler was at his best, he was throwing to CeeDee Lamb and Hollywood Brown at Oklahoma, and he's just scrambling around the pocket and just throwing YOLO balls down the field. And like, that's not what Marvin Harrison does. He came into the league as a technician. I mean, this dude's not like a speed wide receiver whatsoever. Now he can he can beat somebody deep. We've seen it, on plays, and we've seen it, on tape where Kyler has missed him when he has beaten people deep. But like, when Marv was coming into the league, I thought more of him as just like PPR machine, just targets, and just chain moving all game long, with Marvin. When you need it, got to have it. That's where you go with the ball. And I don't think that's what Kyler's doing.
He needs a quarterback that's willing to throw a little bit more contested balls to him. And Marvin Harrison is really good at that. And not to say he's slow, but he has more build-up speed than he has he's quick, accelerating, get the top speed fast. But he can get moving, but it takes him a little bit. And I don't know if he's I like how you said, I don't know if stylistically he's the right fit with Kyler Murray, but we'll see. Maybe they get better.
I think they will. I think it'll be all right. I think they'll figure it out. We can't have Greg Dortch getting touchdowns when we have Marvin Harrison Jr. So we'll figure it out.
They're going to score any points, if they're going to come elsewhere the next 3 weeks, because it's Miami and Jalen Ramsey, Chicago and Jalen Johnson, and the Jets and Sauce Gardner for Marvin Harrison coming up. And that just sounds like a nightmare. So just benchmark the next 3 weeks, honestly.
So maybe you'll have a buy low opportunity in 3 weeks. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it's very possible.
Yeah.
If people don't understand who he's being covered by, I think it's very possible.
Well, we'll see.
Okay, let me get back to the doc. Okay, Malik Neighbors here, A+ with a 30% target share. Everything's been awesome outside of the concussion that he took.
The Travis Scott concert, little detour.
Yeah, it
was fine. No worries.
Little odd, but Spanky, I believe you liked that part. He's showing everybody who's the man in the room and who runs the city, kind of thing.
Yep.
I did enjoy that. I like my wide receivers that have a little bit of an attitude problem. A little bit of that diva mentality. It's usually translates to them being a badass on the field. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. He's going to get Joey Porter Jr. this weekend, but then he gets Washington and Carolina.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, so all wheels up from Malik Neighbors. He's had an awesome rookie season. You got anything on Neighbors there, Holler?
No, he's been great. Nothing more to add. That he's been great. It was a bummer that he was out with that concussion. And I think obviously this week the Giants were absolutely terrible. So I think it was kind of like, I wouldn't say an outlier because Daniel Jones is Daniel Jones. But he's got some better matchups coming up, and I think he'll be just fine. I think he's going to continue being that same guy.
Definitely. Okay, T. Higgins with a B+. Out targeting Jamar Chase. For 3 weeks straight now? I believe it is. We've got a no to go buy him. I tried to go buy him. Nobody wants to get rid of old T. Higgins.
No luck. Yeah, so he was a guy that I said last week to go and buy him. I pulled up some trades here. From just today, there's quite a bit of them. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of them. I'll just highlight some of them here. Rome Odunze for T. Higgins. I'm taking T. Brandon Ayuk and a third for T. Higgins. I'm taking T.
Baby.
Higgins. T. Higgins for Chris Godwin and a second. I'm taking T. Higgins.
T. Higgins all day.
Here's an interesting one. David Njoku and Anthony Richardson for T. Higgins and a 2025 second.
Still Higgins. I don't really like Anthony Richardson though, to be fair. So
I feel like you're selling a little bit low on
tough.
Anthony Richardson there. So I don't know. That one's tough for me as well. I'm gonna lean towards the quarterback because this is super flex 2 quarterback, start 11, 12 team. So
how long is he gonna be the quarterback for though? Like he's a quarterback.
Yeah, no, that's a really good argument. And so I do think though that I might eat my words here, but I think he might have a longer leash than just this year because he's on that rookie contract. But he has looked bad, and he's not looking any better. The more he plays, so he's going in the wrong direction.
This is basically still his rookie year. I mean, he had how many games did he play in his actual rookie year? How many was it?
I think 4, right?
Yeah,
and
4. I believe it was 4.
Finished 3 of those. Yeah. But I mean that's part of his problem. He had that problem at Florida too. He only started and played the 1 full season. And he hasn't been able to stay on the field this year either. He's missed a couple of games and he's been terrible when he's on the field. And it's killed his wide receivers. Like Josh Downs has been one of the best wide receivers in the league when Joe Flacco's throwing the ball. And conversely, he's been one of the worst wide receivers on the field when Anthony Richardson's in the game. And it's like, if you can't complete more than 50% of your passes, like what you don't. Yeah, I'm sorry, you don't belong on NFL offense. I don't care that you can run the ball so dynamically. That's great. Maybe you can get some kind of QB run package in for you, but like that can't hold up. If you don't improve at some point, like they're gonna have to move on from him. That's just, I mean, that's what happened to Justin Fields, and Fields is a better passer than Anthony Richardson is. So I don't know, man.
So I'm going to continue trying to go out and buy T. I haven't had any luck either. Here's another one, T for Rashee Rice, Ben Sinnott, and the 25 first for T Higgins. I'll buy for that. T Higgins for a first and a third in 2025. I think I'm good with that as well. T Higgins for a first. I'd rather do that one. I think he's trading at a first and a plus, right? So I think you're going to need to mostly add to that first to get T Higgins because the last couple games he's been really, really good. So I don't think people are going to want to move off of him unless they're getting a nice deal. So, but yeah, if you can go out and buy T Higgins,
for sure,
definitely. Let's pop into these running backs and tight ends real quick. We got Derrick Henry, the man that time has forgotten about. This dude is about to rush for 2,000 yards. It's insane. He's 30 years old. You got the question, you're trying to acquire him. The only reason I don't want to acquire Derrick Henry is because I don't want to pay a first. Like, I know it would be worth it to have him, but I also it's hard to stomach that, I think, right now. And then we got DeAndre Swift on here. The offense for the Bears has been, getting better these past 3 weeks, I believe. I think they played a few duds on defense to kind of bolster that. We had the Rams, the Panthers, and Jacksonville, and they're going to buy and get Washington, Arizona, and New England. So that fourth place schedule is really going to look nice for DeAndre Swift in the upcoming.
Yeah, and weeks. Swift gets the Commanders this week, and so I think he's going to have another good week. And I've been very surprised by him the last couple of weeks. He's been really, really good. So impressed.
I think the biggest thing for him that I wanted to point out, so he's been getting all the inside the 5 carries for the Bears, which is huge. That's always been his thing, is that he gets pulled at the goal line, and he hasn't been this year, and I think that's really, really helping him. And imagine that, right?
Yeah,
I think since I saw some news that I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. Was the other running back was going to get most of the work?
Roschon.
Yeah, thank you. Roschon Johnson was getting most of the work. Since then, he's been awesome. So I think that was mainly just to put a fire under his ass.
Yeah, that was his problem in Detroit. I can tell you that. They said it right on Hard Knocks. The dude's got a motivation problem. So, probably that would not shock me one bit if they were out there just trying to get DeAndre motivated. Okay, tight ends. Mark Andrews with a C+. I think Mark's on his way back after the 2 touchdown game. Sam Laporta has been poop swag, and Dalton Kincaid has not been great either.
Yeah, so for me, Mark Andrews, I think the biggest thing was, coming back from injury last year, and then he also got into a car accident in the offseason, and I think it was like early on in the beginning of training camp is when the car accident happened. So I think maybe he was working through some injuries, and so I think he's on his way back, like you said. 3 touchdowns in the last 2 games is awesome. And then Sam Laporta, I think the biggest thing is the amount of targets he's getting. Maybe he gets more with JMO out, but last week JMO didn't really do much, and he still didn't do anything. So I don't know. I'm a little worried. And then for me, Dalton Kincaid, I added him because the last four games he's had 7 and 6 targets. So he's really playing a lot better. And he's on tight end 13 on the season. So I think for me, he's on his way up. And I think with Amari Cooper there, he's basically he was the focal point before. And each week that Amari Cooper is going to be there, I think it's just going to get better and better because he's going to understand the offense a little bit more.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely agree. You guys want to get the starts of the week?
Let's do it.
All righty. I went with Aaron Rodgers for my quarterback. Yeah, I know. Last time out versus the Patriots, he went for 281 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Jets really got to kick it into gear. I think, him and Devontae getting a full week of practice under their belts and rekindling their love for one another is only going to help. And Rodgers still seemed willing to target Garrett Wilson as well. I don't know how much he will after the unfortunate interception that clanged off Garrett Wilson's chest. But I mean, the weapons are definitely there, and I think it's a prime matchup on a Patriots defense that has kind of started to stink it up.
Yeah, and coaches came out and said they were playing soft, so we'll see what happens.
Right.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, who you got?
So mine's Caleb Williams. Before the bye, he was cooking. Looked really, really good. 23 and 28 points the last 2 games, 6 total touchdowns, and he is being very good on the ground. 90 yards in the last 2 games that he's played. So they do play. They played really well against the Panthers. The Commanders did, and so I think it will be their defense looked really good is why I'm bringing that up. But they give up the 5th most points to quarterbacks. So I think he's in for another good week. So fire up Caleb Williams and feel good about it.
Love it.
Nice.
I don't think I've ever talked about this guy on a podcast before, so I'm gonna bring him up now. But
Never.
Bo Nix.
Never.
It's Bo time, baby. He gets the Carolina Panthers this week. Also, don't look now, but last 3 weeks, fantasy finishes 8, 10, 16. He's heating up, baby. He's been awesome on the ground. He's getting some rushing touchdowns.
Question.
He's throwing the ball well. He's slinging it. He's my man. He's Bo. He's Bo on the go. That's a
8, 10, 16 is going the wrong way.
It's 2 quarterback 1 and a high end quarterback 2 finish is what I'm getting at here. He's been fantastic, especially at most
he has
late first. So
I was very impressed by the Broncos last Thursday. The Saints stunk it up, and the Broncos really did the opposite. So I was impressed.
Yeah, definitely. Let's pop in running back here. I got Jordan Mason versus the Cowboys. The Cowboys are giving up at least 100 yards on the ground. Ayuk's out. Debo's status is up in the air. Kittle's hurt. Jawan Jennings is hurt. I think it's just going to be Jordan Mason time, and we'll just matriculate this ball down the field all game against this weak rush defense for the Cowboys.
Yeah, Cowboys defense is awful. I got Javonte Williams. He had an awesome game last Thursday. I think it was over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, resulting in 26 fantasy points. He gets the Panthers this week, who give up the most fantasy points to any position. So always start when your players are playing against the Panthers. And the big notes though is he's getting an increased workload and he's playing in the red zone. So I know in the beginning of the year he's been rotated in and out during the red zone, but last game he was firmly in there for the red zone. And I think last week was his best game since his injury. So I think Javonte Williams is all the way back.
Love it. I got a duo special here for my running backs for the week. J.K. Dobbins and Kamani Vidal. I think Vidal, obviously, if it's a deep league and you got a rough roster, I think you can feel confident starting him this week. J.K. Dobbins is the real one though. He's been getting 14 plus carries a game for the last few weeks now. They get the New Orleans Saints this week, who Javonte Williams who we just talked about just ran wild over. The Saints really are struggling. They can't tackle anybody. They don't have the run fits. They're all kinds of banged up. There should be plenty of volume. The Chargers love running the ball. The Saints can't stop the ball. This feels like a huge smash week for these two guys.
Definitely agree there. Oh, at wide receiver,
Monty Vidal is looking good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I think J.K. Dobbins is playing good enough to keep him on the field. So, and all they do is run the ball. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. I got that's that old Jim Harbaugh offense, baby. I got Cortland Sutton versus the Panthers, and the only note here is surely even Bo Nix can throw deep on the Panthers.
Yeah, even Bo Nix.
Yeah,
that's QB 8, 10, and 16 the last 3 weeks.
and Sutton can only go up. Last week he had big fat 0. So
yeah, I think he watched the game from the sideline, just kind of ran up and down the field.
I got George Pickens. He went off last week, and I think he is probably the most the biggest beneficiary from the QB change. I was impressed with Russell Wilson. He did some things solid, and I think it's going to continue. The biggest thing though is Russell Wilson throws the ball up so Pickens can go and get it, and that's what Pickens does best. And I think that's going to continue, and he gets a nice matchup this week. So I think it's possible he can go over 100 yards again. He had 9 targets last week. I think that's going to continue.
Mm-hmm. Love it. My wide receiver start of the week, digging a little deep here, but Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk is obviously out with the torn ACL. Deebo Samuel, even if he plays, which sounds like he's questionable heading into the week, I don't think he's going to be a full himself. Conditioning has to be off just based on 2 weeks of pneumonia. That being said, Ricky Pearsall, he gets a week kind of going to prep as the guy. Dallas has had they've had their fair share of issues on defense. I think Parasol's in for a nice little show week. Excited to see him.
Hell yeah.
Show out this week.
Yeah,
I hope so too.
I know Ron
I
loves
hope so,
that. I'm
too.
stoked to see.
Yeah.
Like to be honest, he didn't look great last week, so I'm hoping he can each week gets better.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think he walked into that week expecting to be the wide receiver one by the end of the game. That's for
definitely
sure.
not.
I think that was a get your feet wet kind of week for old Ricky. My tight end of the week is Noah Fant. I just think he's been putting up solid numbers, and the tight end position is just straight garbage. And if DK is out, that will definitely open up some targets as well. It is the Buffalo Bills, so a little bit of tough sledding. Not the worst defense in the world to come up against. Geno slinging it.
Yeah, I think JSN's a good play too. So I got David Njoku. I think everyone's gonna love to see Jameis Winston out there, especially David Njoku. He got 14 targets last week. I would have loved to look into a little bit more to see how many of those targets were when Jameis Winston got in, because I'm sure it was a good amount of them. And he ended up getting 10 for 76 in the touchdown. So I think that will continue. He's the best pass catcher there in Cleveland with everybody left. So I think, and I know Baltimore is like that defense is usually good, but they struggle against the tight end. Even Noah Gray had a good game. So
for sure. My tight end start of the week, Mark Andrews. I know so many people have been burned by him the start of the season, but I think we touched on it earlier. He's heating up. He's had 3 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. I think that kind of continues. He's been getting more and more targets, more and more involved in the offense. I think he's finally healthy and ready to go and becoming more of a focal point of the offense. And the Ravens have one of the best offenses in the league, and I think he's being used appropriately now. Zay Flowers, I know he got banged up a little bit too. I don't know how 100% he is. So Mark Andrews is, I think he's in line for another touchdown week, or at least another healthy target week.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
Nice. You guys got anything else for the people?
That's all I got. I gave my heart to this one. That's all I got, guys.
Heart and soul. Oh,
if you haven't already, join our Discord. It is free to join.
That, and we have T-shirts now.
Right
here. If you guys are watching on YouTube, you can check it out. And hit us up in the Discord. We can give you the link for those as well.
For sure. Oh, and for the patrons, we have a watch party this weekend. We're gonna watch the first slate of early morning games or early afternoon games, depending on where you live. So if you want to come hang out with us, watch some football, just kind of shoot the breeze, we will be there.
Let's go.
All right.
Peace out.